Would you please sit down?
Please be seated. Please be seated. We don't have time, and we have in front of us 24 requests. Please be seated. Okay.
Give the floor to Spain.
So now, good morning, everybody. Before we start and we continue our list for inscription, we have in front of us 24 nominations today, only today. And I see that Spain would like to speak. Please, you have the floor, Spain.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta, y con ánimo de facilitar el debate que vamos a comenzar en todas estas candidaturas, yo quisiera hacer un comentario general, puesto que muchas de la documentación que recibimos contienen cambios significativos. No son quizá meras enmiendas como están contempladas en las directrices generales, sino realmente estamos tenemos ante la mesa de este comité documentos que podríamos considerar incluso nuevos documentos presentados por los Estados en distintas candidaturas. Yo por eso rogaría a los Estados partes que presentan estas enmiendas o estos nuevos documentos que hicieran una clara explicación técnica de por qué presentan esta documentación que tenemos tan escaso tiempo de revisar, así como que a los Estados parte cuyas candidaturas se van a revisar, que expliquen también los motivos técnicos para estas modificaciones, porque en el fondo lo que estamos haciendo en este comité es lo que dice el artículo 23 de las directrices, realmente examinar con criterios técnicos cuidadosamente todas estas nominaciones, y a nosotros lo que nos gustaría para poder lograr el consenso en este comité, que hubiera un debate de las mismas, que hubiera una discusión, que se contestaran las preguntas que se suscitan por los distintos Estados partes, y a través de este intercambio de opinión de los expertos, a través de estos debates de cada uno de los dosieres que tenemos ante las mesas, podamos tomar las decisiones pertinentes y alcanzar, como he dicho, ese consenso que caracteriza el trabajo de la UNESCO en este y en otros órganos de gobierno. Muchísimas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you very much. Norway, you have the floor. Norway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to say that as a newcomer in this committee, Norway finds it very challenging to work under the circumstances we experience. It was emphasized in the opening of this meeting that we should indeed try to follow the requirements of Rule 32 of the Rules of Procedure. As things are progressing, we find it very challenging to work in line with what is expected from us, in line with Para 23 of the operational guidelines, stating specifically that our decisions should be based on scientific and objective considerations. Cases are opened late, amendments are coming late with significant changes, and I need to ask, do we really understand the consequences of our decisions? I fear that we don't, at least on our behalf. And therefore, we strongly echo the wise intervention from the distinguished representative of Spain. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Australia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and good morning. I just want to lend Australia's support to the comments made by our distinguished colleagues from Spain and from Norway. We do think that we can, through earlier submission of draft amendments and so on, improve the way that we're working, and that indeed it is very important that we are able to reflect deeply on the decisions that we're taking, so that we do understand the future implications of them. On a very small point, when it does come to the consideration of amendments, it would be much appreciated if we could scroll more slowly through major amendments at the end so that we all have had the opportunity to read them and understand them clearly, because they haven't all always come to us. And just in the spirit of early notification, I just wanted to indicate that Australia is working on some proposed amendments to the decision in relation to the sites of memory, and we'll be bringing forward of Belgium and France, and later today we'll be bringing forward an amendment for the deferral of consideration of that property as opposed to the postponement as is suggested at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see no other intervention, so we will start our agenda. I'm sorry. So Brazil, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I would like to express that the Brazilian delegation shares the concerns expressed by Spain, also by Norway and Australia, in the sense that it is very difficult that we analyze a whole new draft minutes before the discussion of the item. And it is also very difficult for experts coming from our capitals that have analyzed the draft decision before coming, have made a position, and when they arrive here, they are confronted with a completely new text with the change of criteria for the inscription, change of the base for inscription of a certain item. So we would very much like to bring this to your consideration. It's important that countries who make those new amendments, or not amendments, but new draft decisions, could be able to explain so that our experts could better understand what their motivations are. Thank you very much, Madam.
Thank you very much. Okay, no further intervention. So we will start our agenda items. We'll start with India, and I give the floor to ICOMOS to present the nomination of the Victorian and Art Deco ensemble of Mumbai, India. ICOMOS, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The nominated property is located in the south of Mumbai. It comprises an urban ensemble of 94 historic buildings of 19th century Victorian Gothic and of early 20th century Art Deco, with the open green space of the Oval Maidan in between. They represent modernization endeavors in architectural and urban planning apologies, to turn the city into a commercial hub. The property includes Indo-Saracenic and Edwards neoclassical buildings also to the north of the Oval Maidan and to the east and south of the Victorian Gothic group. The Art Deco buildings extend to a row along Marine Drive. The nominated ensemble is surrounded by a buffer zone which also encompasses the Chhatrapati Shivaji terminus, World Heritage property. The erection of the nominated urban ensemble was made possible first by the demolition of the fortification in the 1860s, which made available land for development and marked the transformation of the city from a fortified outpost into a world-class commercial center. The Back Bay Reclamation Scheme in the early 20th century offered another opportunity for the city to expand to the west with Art Deco residential, commercial, and entertainment buildings and the creation of Marine Drive. The property has been nominated for it represents an unparalleled ensemble of Victorian and Art Deco buildings, creating a formidable architectural dialectic influencing the narrative of modernism in Asia, with a distinct architectural genre, Western in form and Indian in spirit. After the reception of the interim report, the State Party has submitted further information that complement the justification for the outstanding universal value. This urban ensemble of Victorian Art Deco buildings created a distinct entity, an urban response to the growth of a trading colonial city by the sea. The selected criteria are 2 and 4. Indeed, the comparative analysis has demonstrated that the Victorian Gothic and the Art Deco ensemble exhibit an important exchange of European and Indian human values over a span of time. The additional information sent in February 2018 clarified the connection that ties these two ensembles, styles and types of buildings, as both parts of the two major urban expansion and modernization of the city. Criterion 4, through their architectural styles, construction materials and techniques, urban planning philosophies, this ensemble witnesses to the development of Mumbai from a small coastal fort into the preeminent colonial city, global financial capital, and the gateway to India. Following clarification from the State Party, ICOMOS considered that the nominated property includes all elements necessary to express the proposed outstanding universal value. However, the speed of urban growth may compromise visually the property. The nominated property can be said to retain its authenticity in terms of form, design, and function. However, no written records of the history of addition and modification for each building have been made available to understand better what transformation they passed through and would be needed in the future. The legal protection of the property and buffer zone is based on the statute of the Government of Maharashtra, Heritage Regulation for Greater Mumbai, and the fort and the Marine Drive precincts are protected as heritage precincts. All proposals for changes and developments must be screened by the Heritage Conservation Committee, and this also applies to the CES buildings, as confirmed by additional information sent by the State Party in February 2018. Explanation and record of the work of the Heritage Conservation Committee, however, would need to be further detailed for the future. Management relies on existing mechanisms, Section 52 of Greater Mumbai Development Plan, implemented by the Heritage Conservation Committee. A management plan exists, however, clarification would be needed on the implementing structure and tools. In summary, the comparative analysis has proved that the outstanding universal value and the criteria have been demonstrated, integrity and authenticity are met, with caveats concerning urban pressure. The rationale for the delineation of the boundary have been clarified and now appear adequate. Legal protection is in place and implemented, although not sufficiently documented. Conservation can be considered overall fair, although some buildings need urgent measures. Management exists, and some clarification, as explained before, would be needed concerning organization and staffing level. ICOMOS therefore recommends that the nominated property is inscribed on the World Heritage List under Criterion 2 and 4, and there are some additional recommendations on protection, conservation, and management. ICOMOS finally recommends to change the name of the property into the Victorian Gothic and Art Deco Ensemble of Mumbai. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other comments from the experts? No? Nothing? Okay. Is there any comments from the member of the committee? Norway, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me start with congratulating India and the city of Mumbai for this magnificent nomination that displays Mumbai's vital role in the history. We find, however, that it could be useful if ICOMOS could explain to the committee how this nomination relates to the World Heritage Site of Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus, and whether it would be relevant in the future to consider whether Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus could be included in the World Heritage Site of the Victorian and Art Deco Ensemble of Mumbai. I ask this because that site is inscribed with the same criteria, and it could seem like the building already inscribed could very well fit in as a serial component of the nomination we have in front of us. Mumbai's role in the world and as a trading center that binds West and East together in two significant and different periods in our history is clearly demonstrated in this property, and we heartily welcome this nomination. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Australia supports the inscription of the Victorian and Art Deco ensemble of Mumbai. We were very appreciative of the quality of the nomination, in particular the clarity with which the history and development of the property is presented, and the systematic description of the various architectural components in both written and visual material. This clearly justified how the values of the property are reflected in the fabric of this distinctive architectural heritage. We congratulate the State Party of India.
Thank you very much. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The current dossier pays tribute to the modernization phase that Mumbai went through, highlighting the important exchange of European and Indian human value, the combination the splendid Indo-Gothic building and the Indo-Deco style, which would spread all over the Indian subcontinent, reflect more than 2 centuries of development in the architecture and urban planning. The Brazilian delegation is very pleased with the inscription of the Victorian and Art Deco ensemble of Mumbai, and would like to warmly congratulate the State Party of India for the successful nomination of the magnificent cultural site.
Thank you very much. Bosnia, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Nous voudrions aussi, comme les autres collègues, féliciter l'État parti pour l'excellent dossier et aussi pour dire qu'on sera honoré que cet magnifique patrimoine soit inscrit sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Merci.
Thank you very much. Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Zimbabwe joins other colleagues in congratulating the State Party of India for a well-deserved achievement for the inscription of this property, the Victoria and Art Deco ensemble of Mumbai, under criteria 2 and 4. We think this property is a good addition and to the World Heritage List, and we would like to urge the State Party to continue working with the advisory bodies to implement the recommendations relating to boosting the work of the Heritage Conservation Committee in order to maintain the good work and management that they have shown on the site. Zimbabwe congratulates India. Thank you.
Thank you very much. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The nomination reflects the solid value studies and concise justification that the State Party has carried out in respect to the property that bears outstanding values. China supports the inscription of the Victoria and Art Deco ensemble of Mumbai. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Tunisia, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. La Tunisie souhaite féliciter l'État parti d'avoir présenté un dossier de si grande qualité. L'ensemble victorien et Art déco de Mumbai est un exemple de très bonne facture de présentation qualitative, et il témoigne aussi de la très belle circulation des modèles architecturaux et artistiques et d'un très bel état de conservation, et témoigne aussi d'un grand effort d'appropriation et de compréhension par l'État parti. La Tunisie souhaite les féliciter d'avoir présenté un dossier d'une si haute facture.
Thank you very much. Sankits, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. St. Kitts and Nevis wishes to associate itself with the comments made by Norway, Australia and others, and congratulates the State Party of India on the inscription of the Victorian and Art Deco ensemble of Mumbai under criteria 2 and 4. We note the excellent work done by the State Party and encourage India to consider the recommendations of ICOMOS as outlined in the draft decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Spain, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. En primer lugar, felicitar a la India por la inscripción de este bien y por el trabajo realizado. Se trata de una candidatura que aporta un bien a la lista que resulta escaso, por tanto enriquece la lista de patrimonio mundial en cuanto a la tipología de bienes, de una arquitectura y un urbanismo del siglo XIX y XX con unas características propias y singulares y en un contexto geográfico que resulta excepcional. Parece evidente que existe una arquitectura de base europea y desarrollo autóctono en todo Asia, pero el expediente evidencia que Bombay sería un ejemplo mucho más complejo, más rico, mejor conservado y de mayor entidad y desarrollo, además de haber establecido en los últimos años las medidas adecuadas para garantizar su conservación. Felicidades al Gobierno de la India. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Hungary, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hungary congratulates the State Party for the successful nomination dossier, for the thorough work done to prove the OUV of the site. The Victorian structure and the 20th century Art Deco buildings of Mumbai represent not only a very significant architectural ensemble in this region, but also the cultural and economic relations of this era in the broad region and also in the world. The conservation and management of the property seems to be adequate, and on the basis of the criteria 2 and 4, the inscription is justified. The State Party surely will follow the instructions of the advisory body. Let me congratulate again for this success to the State Party. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor now to Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to join the previous speakers in congratulating the State Party for this perfect nomination, which indeed represents the very essence of Art Deco architectural style. So we would like to encourage the State Party to put in place all these protective and safeguarding measures of this indeed excellent heritage site. So we would like at the end to congratulate the State Party for the inscription. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, Tanzania, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, Tanzania joined hands with the other state parties in conveying our warm congratulations to the State Party on the nomination of this unique site. Indeed, the interaction of European and Indian human values and developments in architecture and urban planning have over time laid a solid basis for the outstanding universal value of this property. In order to maintain the already existing OUV of this property, we wish to encourage the State Party to take note of the recommendations of the advisory bodies, including the completion of the 2013 inventory and revival of the Art Deco Aero Cinema. Finally, Madam Chair, we fully support the draft decision to inscribe this property in the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 2 and 4. Once again, congratulations, India.
Thank you. Thank you very much. To answer the questions, I give the ICOMOS the floor, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think ICOMOS has received only one question from the Honorable Delegate of Norway regarding whether this property could be seen in relation to the Victorian terminus, the Chhatrapati Shivaji terminus. The ICOMOS panel has discussed in length this aspect. Although the criteria are the same and, how to say, could be seen as similar, in fact, the nominated property includes an urban dimension, which is not part of the previous inscribed property, and also encompass Art Deco buildings. So we do have two phases that reflects one urban design developed in different phases, and this could not be considered applicable to the Chhatrapati Shivaji terminus. So in consideration of the fact that serial properties need to reflect the full scope and facets of the proposed OUV, the ICOMOS panel considered that that was not the case in this particular nomination, that would have probably complicated the understanding of the outstanding universal value of the Chhatrapati Shivaji terminus and the one of the Victorian and Art Deco ensemble of Mumbai. I hope I have clarified ICOMOS' position.
Thank you very much. Now I give France as observer.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Ma délégation souhaiterait simplement féliciter l'Inde d'avoir déposé ce dossier et de l'avoir poussé jusqu'au bout. C'est un magnifique dossier qui prouve tout ce que les grandes puissances européennes ont apporté au monde au XIXe siècle, les traces qu'elles ont laissées à travers la planète, et surtout que nous sommes là en quelque sorte pour reconnaître ce qui, dans la civilisation mondiale interdépendante, il y a de valeurs universelles exceptionnelles. Donc, encore une fois, un grand bravo à l'Inde pour ce magnifique dossier.
Thank you very much. And now I give the floor to our reporter.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I wish a good morning to all colleagues. We haven't received amendments on this draft decision. Thank you very much.
So there is no amendment. I therefore declare draft decision 42, 8B, 19 adopted. So on your behalf, I congratulate India, and I give them the floor.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and Namaste. As India takes the floor for the first time in this 42nd session, we would like to commend you, Madam Chairperson, on your efficient supervision of this committee and offer our special thanks to our gracious hosts, the Kingdom of Bahrain, for their excellent hospitality. On behalf of the Government of India, the Government of Maharashtra, and the citizens of Mumbai, this delegation of India would like to thank the committee, the World Heritage Center, the Secretariat, and the ICOMOS for their invaluable efforts towards the inscription of Victorian and Art Deco ensemble of Mumbai to the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. We take note of the observations made during the evaluation and assure the committee that these will be given due consideration by the state party. We also accept the change of the name of the proposed site to Victorian Gothic and Art Deco ensembles of Mumbai, agreeing with the assessment that the site represents a dialogue between the two different architectural styles, the 19th century Victorian Gothic and the 20th century Art Deco. The city of Mumbai, with over 15 million people, has over the last century or two emerged as India's financial capital, the gateway city, the city of Indian cinema, the city of Bollywood, and now the city with 3 World Heritage properties. We would like to dedicate this inscription to the proud citizens of Mumbai, the Mumbaikars, who have always put great value to their heritage and worked consistently to protect it. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
And now we will shift to the Islamic Republic of Iran and the site of Sassanid architectural landscape of Farr region. Now I give the floor to ICOMOS to present the mixed nomination of the site, and before that I give the floor to the Secretariat, Mr. Balsamo, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to remind that we received a factual error notification concerning the nomination of the Sassanid archaeological landscape of Farr region, and is to be found on page 38 of the English version of document in Fate before, and on page 43 of the French version of the same document. Thank you, Madam Chair.
ICOMOS, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The Sassanid archaeological landscape of Farr region includes fortification structures, palaces, reliefs, and city plans which date back to the Sassanid Empire, which stretched across the region from 424 to 658 of the Christian era. It is a Syria nomination of 8 selected archaeological site components in 3 geographical areas at Firuzabad, Bishapur, and Sarvestan, all located in the southwestern Fars province of Iran. The overall nominated area encompasses 693 hectares. The northernmost of the Firuzabad components is Qala Dohtar, a fortification structure at the northern entrance of the valley, which was selected as a stronghold by Ardashir Papakan, the founder of the Sassanid Empire, when preparing his revolt against the Persian kings. The second serial component illustrates a stone bas-relief with a dimension of 3.5 times 7 meters, which depicts Ardashir's investiture by Ahmast, the Zoroastrian creator god, who is standing behind, handing the ring of sovereignty to him over a fire altar. In the vicinity of this are the remains of a bridge described by the state party as the best dated example of Sasanian masonry from the 5th century. At the southern end of the Tangiab Valley, here forming a gorge, is the third site component, a rock-carved bas-relief of Ardashir's victory. Leaving the gorge southwards onto the open plain, one finds the remains of Ardashir's capital city, Ardashir. This circular city was constructed in a previously swampy area created through water transfer from Tangiab River. At Ardashir are the archaeological remains of a city laid out in a perfect circle with a diameter of close to 2 kilometers divided into 20 equal sectors by means of precise geometric systems and 20 radials and several concentric streets. It was surrounded by a defensive wall, a 35 meters wide ditch, and another outer wall. Beyond this, the city expanded into the wider setting. The radials, consisting of traces of canals, paths, walls, and field boundaries, continue up to 10 kilometers distance from the central tower. The serial component of Odysseas Palace is located on one of these 3 axes 2 kilometers away from the capital city. The remains of the key city created by Ardashir's successor, Shapur I, who reigned from 243 to 273, named Bishapur, which means the city of Shapur, is located about 100 kilometers west of Shiraz. The remains of this rectangular city with orthogonal streets and 4 gates cover an area of 155 hectares. The settlement was surrounded by 2 walls, one of which encircled the royal quarter in the west of the city, and a significant defensive rampart which encircled the entire settlement. All architectural structures were built using stone, lime, and gypsum mortar. Much of this Sasanian city, however, has been built upon during the Islamic era, so that very few areas have been excavated and visibly testify to the Sassanid era. In the narrow gorge close to the city, one finds 7 rock-carved stone reliefs depicting different scenes and portraits. The gorge ultimately leads to Shapur's cave, the second site component in the Bishop Hill group, which exhibits a 6.7 meters high statue of Shapur I, carved out of a stalagmite formed in situ. The third archaeological group consists of only one component, the 8th and last site component of this nomination, Savestan Monument. This monument was originally also considered to be early Sassanid. However, radiocarbon samples undertaken dated to the late 7th, mid-8th, and late 9th century, respectively. This leads to the conclusion that it illustrates transitional architecture at the end of the Sasanian and more predominantly beginning of the Islamic era, illustrating the continued use of Sassanid-inspired designs in the Islamic area. ICOMOS concludes that the property does not currently meet any of the criteria nor integrity based on 2 narrow boundaries and the composition of the series. However, ICOMOS notes that a reduced series, specifically excluding the Savestan monument, could have potential to meet criteria 3 and 5. In terms of conservation and management conditions, ICOMOS observes that several components are very fragile, with their state of conservation at times critical and requiring immediate attention. ICOMOS also observes that the boundaries are by no means sufficient to reflect the notion of an archaeological landscape, as they do not include important attributes of value concepts in the topographical surroundings of the archaeological sites. ICOMOS therefore recommends that the Sassanid archaeological sites of the Fars region be deferred to the state party to exclude Savestan monument from the proposed series and expand the property boundaries to reflect the important topographic setting of the property. ICOMOS further recommends that the state party undertakes further geographical surveys and establishes a comprehensive monitoring system for the property. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Is there any comments or Spain. Yeah. Intervention? Yes. Spain, please.
Gracias, señora presidenta. La nominación del paisaje arqueológico sasánida de la región de Fars, propuesto por la República Islámica de Irán, posee una gran personalidad cultural. Demuestra una gran contribución de la cultura sasánida a la civilización mundial a través de una representación de la habilidad de integrar esa arquitectura civil y religiosa, el arte, la planificación urbana, el uso del territorio y la gestión del agua en un contexto natural en la región de Fars, la cuna de la dinastía sasánida. El imperio sasánida es sin duda uno de los imperios más poderosos del mundo antiguo, que gobernó durante gran parte de Asia del siglo III al VII, y Fars es la región del imperio más adecuada para ilustrar la formación, evolución y continuación a lo largo de 400 años de esta civilización que lideró el área cultural del mundo iraní y dejó un legado muy importante a la civilización islámica. Y este paisaje arqueológico de Sasánida, de la región de Fars, también es testimonio de las influencias de las tradiciones culturales del imperio aqueménida y del imperio parto, del intercambio cultural con el arte y la arquitectura romana, así como una importante influencia de la planificación urbana, el arte y la cultura en la era islámica. En este respecto, el componente del Sarbestán es un ejemplo espléndido de la fuerza de la arquitectura y las tradiciones religiosas sasánidas durante el tiempo islámico temprano, con sus cúpulas y pechinas y su filiación religiosa zoroástrica. La delegación del Reino de España considera que las clarificaciones y documentación que proporcionó el Estado parte compensan algunas de las objeciones presentadas en el documento a examen por ICOMOS. Por lo tanto, España considera que por también inscribir este bien y conseguir así una mayor representatividad en la lista de Patrimonio Mundial, proponer la inscripción de este importante sitio bajo los criterios 2, 3 y 5 en la lista de Patrimonio Mundial, y así hemos presentado una enmienda. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you very much. Now, Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Australia considers that the nominated Sassanid archaeological landscape of the Farr region is outstanding and bears exceptional testimony to the Sassanid civilization. We agree with the ICOMOS finding that the serial components of the property do not project the complete time reign of the Sassanid Empire, but we're satisfied that the components as nominated do reflect key architectural forms and designs that bear testimony to the Sassanid Empire. We do recognise that there are other important Sassanid sites in Fars and elsewhere that have not been included in the nomination, but as noted by ICOMOS, the property does include Firuzabad and Bishapur, which are the most significant sites relating to the establishment of the Sassanid Empire. We agree with the finding of ICOMOS that the 8 archaeological components of the property as nominated cannot be considered as an exceptional landscape under Criterion 5, and that Criterion 4 has not been clearly justified. We do, however, consider that there's a case for inscription of the property under Criterion 2 and Criterion 3, and support the inscription of the property on this basis. Authenticity varies across the components of the site. Restorations in the past have been undertaken using inappropriate materials, and we urge the State Party to ensure that conservation activities are undertaken in consultation with specialists and use appropriate materials and techniques, and that further reconstructions on any of the components are avoided. Legal protection is adequate and includes regulations to manage the development in the core and buffer zone. However, a comprehensive management plan is needed for the property and needs to include a monitoring system. We have submitted amendments that reflect these concerns, but also our support for inscription of the property on Criterion 2 and 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hungary, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Sassanid Empire created one of the most important links in the history between West and East in the 3rd, 7th century CE. It has to be underlined that the nomination covers only the Fars region, not the entire territory of the empire, and though this region was the birthplace of the Sassanid Empire, the nomination does not intend to cover only the first period of the Sassanid culture. However, as the bulk of the nominated sites had their most important time in the early period as the forts and towns were built, there might be a discrepancy in the consistency and structure of the nomination. However, Hungary believes that this slight inconsistency is on the one side not significant, on the other side an optical illusion. It is clear and proven that significant influence and architectural knowledge have been taken over and applied by the Sassanid Empire, that time first of all from the classical world, the Roman Empire. The cultural interaction between the two empires and later that of the Eastern Roman Empire of Byzantium is one of the most significant elements of the nomination. Even only by taking this fact into account, the proposed property for Hungary seems like fulfilling the requirements of OUV. According to the first evaluation of the advisory body, although the reliefs at Nakshi-Rostem should have been incorporated in the nomination, it is a different acceptable approach on how to nominate the sites of the Sassanid Empire, but according to the delegation of Hungary, the nomination strategy of the state party is also acceptable. Furthermore, the same can be said about the incorporating of Sarvastan in the nomination, not only because its proven existence and evolution in the entire Sassanid period on the basis of excavations and new finds, but also due to the significance of the Sassanid monuments in the early Islamic art. Hungary is therefore in favor of inscribing the Sassanid archaeological landscape in the World Heritage List, and supports the amendments submitted by Australia and other state parties to inscribe it into the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Norway, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Norway appreciates the efforts made by the state party for promoting the Sassanid archaeological landscape of Farr region. There are certainly good reasons to nominate archaeological monuments and structures from this very important cultural heritage. We take note of the recommendations from ICOMOS about refocusing the justification of OUV, adjustment of the boundaries of the remaining components, combining the 5 serial components of Firuzabad and the 2 serial components of Bishapur into one site. Recently, the state party has given new information about factual errors in the ICOMOS evaluation. It's very positive and important that the state party inform the committee members. We consider that misunderstandings easily can arise in the dialogue when evaluations are done. We consider that there are some important uncertainties concerning the values and the criteria, if they are met, and we would therefore recommend the committee to refer the nomination back to the state party. We although have looked carefully into the 2 amendments and take notes of the differences between them, and we would suggest that it might be wise to have a drafting group to look further into the amendments, trying to combine them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Azerbaijan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The nomination of Sassanid archaeological landscape of Farr region represents a proposal of a strong cultural impact. It shows the great contribution which Sassanid culture provided to world civilization through a representation of its ability to integrate civil and religious architecture, art, urban planning, land use, and water management with the natural context of the region of Fars, which was the cradle of the Sassanid dynasty. The Sassanid Empire was one of the powerful empires in the ancient world, which ruled over a vast area of Asia from the 3rd to the 7th centuries. Fars is the most adequate of the empire's regions for illustrating the formation, evaluation, and continuation over a span of 400 years of this civilization. The nominated property also provides evidence of the influence by Achaemenid and Parthian cultural tradition, of the cultural interchange with Roman art and architecture, as well as of the significant impact on urban planning, architecture, and art approach of the Islamic area. In this respect, Sarvestan component is a splendid example of the strengths of Sassanid architectural and religious tradition during the early Islamic period. We consider that the last clarification provided by state party respond to the concerns raised by advisory body. So we could say that proposed property meets the criteria 2, 3, and authenticity and integrity requirements. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. China agrees with the ICOMOS evaluation conclusion that nomination bears outstanding universal value, especially that the first 2 component areas demonstrate the unique creations of the early civilization of the Sassanid Empire. Therefore, for the purpose that this important early period heritage site could gain better identification and conservation, China would like to join the co-sponsors of the amendment of draft decision submitted by Spain to support the inscription of the Sassanid archaeological landscape of Fars region into the World Heritage List. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Kuwait, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
This nomination of the Sassanid archaeological landscape particularly exhibits important interchange of human values and provide an exceptional representation of the Sassanid innovation and the architecture, which had such a strong importance for the development of the architecture in the early Islamic era. And the creation of the dome on squinches represent one of the main heritage of Sassanid civilization to the world culture. This was evident in Sarvistan monument, which was excluded by the advisory body. This monument testified to the transition from the Sassanid to the Islamic era constructed around the end of the dynasty in the 7th and the 8th centuries. We believe this transitional phase is equivalently important as the early stage of the Sassanid Empire and constitute an important part of the whole story. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tunisia, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. La Tunisie se félicite de cette belle proposition d'inscription sur la liste du patrimoine mondial du paysage archéologique de la région de Sassanide, de la région de Fès. Et la Tunisie félicite l'État partie de cette proposition parce qu'elle vient combler une lacune de la liste et elle vient renforcer la représentativité de la liste, car elle permet d'inclure sur la liste les témoignages de l'une des plus brillantes civilisations du monde antique. La Tunisie félicite également l'État partie pour le beau dossier qu'elle a préparé, pour le travail important qu'elle a réalisé pour présenter cette proposition. Elle prend bonne note et partage un grand nombre des remarques pertinentes du COMOS auxquelles l'État partie a fourni un certain nombre d'éléments de réponse. La Tunisie s'associe à la proposition d'amendement présentée par l'Espagne et appuyée par d'autres États partis et demande à ce qu'on donne la parole à l'Iran pour nous apporter plus de précision aux réponses fournies aux remarques du COMOS. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Brazil considers that the nomination presented by Iran embodies elements of great importance to the understanding of mankind's civilizing process. We further understand that the property presents unequivocal, outstanding universal value and support the inscription of the property based on criteria 2, 3, and 5. The Brazilian delegation is ready to support the amendments in this regard and recommends that the state party, in close consultation with the ICAMOS, arrange for an advisory mission with a view to implement the adjustments regarding the interrelation of the serial components and their relationship to the surrounding landscape, as well as the necessary strategies for the promotion and integrated management of the property. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Zimbabwe supports the proposal to amend the draft decision for the Sassanid archaeological landscape of the Fars region from deferral to inscription. This is due to the importance of the landscape as one of the most powerful political entities of the ancient world from the 3rd to the 7th century AD. For the purposes of management, the state party has decided to focus on the archaeological sites as a group of sites, with the rest of the surrounding land around the sites, some of which are now part of urban centers, covered and protected as the buffer zone for these remnants of the former state. It is important to note that an extensive buffer zone has been proposed that will cover the surrounding lands of the archaeological sites of the Sassanid Empire, as required by operational guidelines from paragraph 103 to 107. Architecturally, we believe that the property is also significant, as it is a development of the Sassanid architecture with domes, squinches,
These attributes, in our opinion, satisfy criteria 2 and criteria 3 as proposed by the state party. The archaeological landscape also provides evidence of cultural traditions in architectural and urban planning knowledge and legitimization of power, ritual ceremonies, and the hierarchy of power. It is important that such important historical markers be conserved as they attest to the development of mankind and are a reminder of past powerful political formations in this world. In addition, we have also noted that the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran has taken adequate measures to ensure the protection and management of the nominated property. Madam Chair, we therefore fully support the amended draft decision to inscribe this site. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tanzania, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Tanzania commends the State Party of Iran for coming up with such a rich archaeological site in terms of science, history, and culture. Thanks also to the advisory bodies for the work undertaken on this particular nomination. This is a Syria nomination consisting of 8 archaeological site components in 3 geographical area contexts, all located in the southeastern Fars province, stretching across the region. Chair, Sassanid Archaeological Site is an example of a site that exhibits an important exchange of human values, and it presents an evidence of cultural traditions in archaeological and urban planning knowledge, ritual ceremonies, and the hierarchy of power. Chair, Tanzania Delegation supports the amended draft decision by Spain as seconded by other members to inscribe the property on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 2, 3, and 5. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Guatemala, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora Presidente. Guatemala agradece la presentación realizada por ICOMOS sobre esta nominación, por medio de la cual se ilustran los valores del paisaje arqueológico sasánida de la región Fars, y felicita al Estado parte por los esfuerzos realizados para someter esta nominación. De acuerdo con la propuesta, se puede considerar una obra maestra de la creatividad humana que representa la capacidad de adaptación y uso de los potenciales naturales en la región. Las observaciones expresadas por España permiten también apreciar algunos elementos que apoyan la justificación del BUE de la nominación, considerando que el imperio sasánida fue uno de los más poderosos y duraderos del mundo antiguo, con más de 400 años de desarrollo. El sitio propuesto preserva evidencias de sus relevantes contribuciones al desarrollo de la humanidad en cuanto al uso del territorio, la planificación urbana, la arquitectura civil y religiosa, así como muestras de iconografía monumental. Instamos al Estado parte a seguir trabajando para atender las recomendaciones emitidas por ICOMOS sobre la gestión y conservación de los bienes culturales, y apoyamos las enmiendas propuestas por España, es decir, la inscripción del paisaje arqueológico sasánida de la región Fars en base a los criterios 2, 3 y 5. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Now, Cuba, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora Presidenta. Cuba, en aras del tiempo, no va a fundamentar y abordar lo que otros estados parte han estado valorando con relación a este sitio. En concreto, nosotros apoyamos el proyecto de modificación para la inscripción del sitio. No obstante, tanto en el proyecto original como en las modificaciones, se mantiene una recomendación que me gustaría tal vez Secretaría o el órgano consultivo explicar, en el entendido de que los planes de gestión vistos integralmente tienen como prioridad la conservación de los atributos del valor universal excepcional e incluyen, acorde a las directrices operativas, también la preparación ante riesgo. En tal caso, me gustaría que me explicaran por qué se diferencia y se hace una recomendación para la integración de ambas cosas. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Now, Burkina Faso, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le Burkina Faso remercie l'ICOMOS pour les observations faites et félicite l'État parti pour l'initiative qu'il a eue à proposer justement l'inscription de ce site majeur qui favorisera sa valorisation et sa meilleure conservation pour le bonheur de l'humanité tout entière. Je ne vais plus revenir sur les observations que mes prédécesseurs ont déjà eu à présenter concernant la valeur universelle exceptionnelle du site, ainsi que les critères 2 et 3 qui sont bien remplis et que l'e-commerce a particulièrement fait comprendre. Alors, nous disons simplement que le Burkina est heureux de soutenir l'amendement proposé par l'Espagne pour l'inscription du paysage archéologique sassanide de Farr sur la liste du patrimoine mondial à partir des critères 2 et 3. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Bosnia, you have the floor.
We like to support amendment done by Australia and other member of the committee, and to emphasize importance of this site, especially for education on architecture, because majority of us learning in school, starting architectural education, discussing this architecture of Sassanid and other part of the Iranian territory today. And what is important for us, that we believe that they fulfill all these criteria, and then we like to emphasize good collaboration between advisory body, committee, the directorate, and then state party in this case, and believe that can be applied to all other cases in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, finally, Uganda, please.
Thank you very much, Chair Lady. Uganda is in unison with the submissions of Tanzania, Zimbabwe, and all other delegations in support of the amended draft decision to inscribe this property onto the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Norway, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Norway's initial position was to refer this nomination back to the State Party for further elaboration. Now that we have listened carefully to our distinguished colleagues in the committee, we are ready to join the majority in favor for inscription. But we have two amendments in front of us that looks different on the use of criteria. So we would like to ask ICOMOS if they could elaborate a bit more the use of criteria in the two amendments, please. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Now I give the ICOMOS the floor to explain, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. ICOMOS appreciates the recognition of outstanding universal value by the honorable committee members and notes the general wish to see this property inscribed. I would like to start with the last question first and respond to the honorable delegation of Norway on the use of criteria. Indeed, ICOMOS had stated in its evaluation that the site has a very strong potential for outstanding universal value as a testimony to the early Sassanid Empire and an archaeological landscape that integrates those early Sassanid settlements of great importance into a rather unique landscape setting in this context. This is why ICOMOS had noted that criteria 3 and 5 had a very strong potential to be met by a future reduced series, notably excluding the Savistan monument. Criterion 3 for the site as a testimony to the establishment, commencement, and early expansion of the Sassanid Empire as indicated by its architectural and archaeological testimony, as well as Criterion 5 as a unique archaeological landscape showing the integration of the topographic features, the settlement design, and the defensive uses of the area. Criterion 2, however, which is suggested in in the proposals, in ICOMOS view, would only relate to one of the 8 site components. This is Savestan Monument, which as a monument of the Islamic era shows the adaptation of Sassanid design principles at a far later stage, and is also quite separate in geographical terms, located 200 kilometers from the other 2 components. We do not think the other 7 serial components could make a valuable contribution to Criterion 2, and would therefore support to focus on Criterion 3 and 5 in this context. With regard to the question of the Honourable Delegation of Spain related to the conservation challenges at the site, indeed the state of conservation at some of the site components is rather fragile, and there is a large and comprehensive need for programmed conservation approaches. It is really a big task that needs to be systematically undertaken, and that's why ICOMOS requested a comprehensive conservation plan to be prepared, which also includes risk preparedness and disaster management concerns, given that this is located in a highly earthquake-prone area, as well as encourages local capacity building to enlarge the ability of the local team to respond to the vast needs for conservation to be undertaken. And last but not least, with regard to the different suggestions that were presented by the various honourable delegations, there was a mention of a possible advisory mission of ICOMOS that could take place post-inscription. And if the committee considered a inscription under Criterion 5, then this would indeed be something that ICOMOS would highly appreciate, as we do believe that some of the attributes of outstanding universal value in relation to Criterion 5 are not currently located in the property boundaries, and such a mission could enter dialogue with the state party and consider the possibility of a future boundary extension to encompass these particular attributes. And last but not least, should the committee consider to establish a drafting group for this decision, ICOMOS would gladly offer its services in advisory capacity to this drafting group. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Australia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question was really a point of clarification from ICOMOS, which I think we've just heard. It was around the nominated property as we have in front of us that we're considering, that ICOMOS has not found that it meets Criterion 5. It's more a group of sites rather than a landscape under Criterion 5 right now. If we inscribe it under Criterion 5, it hasn't yet met Criterion 5. But it seems to me that ICOMOS is saying that if we do that, then they will have an advisory mission to discuss with the state party about a boundary modification. And I'm just kind of trying to clarify whether we recommend a boundary modification in future, or we inscribe something now on a criterion that possibly the site has not met, with the idea that in future it might happen.
Thank you very much. Now, before I transfer the matter to the reporter, I may ask the state party of Iran if you would like to give us more clarification or information, please. Bahrain. I'm sorry. Bahrain, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a reflection of some of the discussions that took place with the 2 amendments. We believe that at least it appears to be there's a consensus on Criteria 3 by the majority of the committee members, and the suggestion by Norway to reconsider that within a drafting group. And we thank ICOMOS as well for offering to join their assistance in maintaining that any criteria that are used for such an inscriptions reflect the values in the site itself. And we also remind the committee members that a single criteria will be sufficient for an inscription, and it's not necessarily to have all 3 to ensure an inscription, as the general direction is from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. ICOMOS would like to, maybe they have some comments.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. We just wanted to respond to the question that was posed by Australia in their last comment and perhaps provide again a simplified version of our response to each of the criteria. ICOMOS believes that criterion 2 is not relevant to 7 of 8 components, only relevant for 1 of 8 components, but not qualified by any of the components at present. In relation to criterion 3, it is qualified by 7 of 8 components and would be strongest supported in the ICOMOS view. Criterion 5 is relevant to also 7 of 8 components, but with the exception that some of the attributes that would contribute to criterion 5 are currently located outside the boundaries of the nominated property. However, ICOMOS considers that these attributes are very strong and that it would be regrettable to lose protection on these attributes by not considering this criterion at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe Iran would like to say something before we transfer the matter to the reporter.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for giving us the possibility and opportunity of taking the floor. The State Party wishes to thank ICOMOS for the collaboration in this process and also to illustrate the justification of OUV for the inscription of the Sassanid archaeological landscape of Fars. Spain has already presented articulated answers to the 2 main objections raised by the draft decision, which suggests to remove the serial site component of Sarvestan and to refocus justification of OUV on the beginning of the Sassanid Empire, and also to combine the 5 serial components of Firuzabad and the 2 serial components of Bishopur into 1 site component boundary for each. I hope the committee will agree on these remarks based on consideration of scientific as well as management order. The Sarvestan monument fully belongs to the Sassanid architectural and religious tradition, despite its being dated to the 1st centuries of the Islamic period. Its architecture is a development of Sassanid architecture with its domes and squinches, and its function is that of a sanctuary of the Zoroastrian religion, the old religion of Sassanid Iran. Thus, Sarvestan shows us the continuity and of Sassanid cultural tradition in Fars and the strength of Zoroastrian communities who managed to build this splendid sanctuary under the Arab rules. The nomination provides evidence of influences by the Achaemenid and Parthian culture and ritual traditions of the cultural interchanges with the Roman art and architecture, as well as of the Sassanid significant impact on urban planning and architecture of Iran. The State Party wishes to propose the criteria 2, 3, and 5, and certainly welcome an advisory mission by ICOMOS for further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I give the floor to our reporter to show the amendments, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As it has been acknowledged during the discussions, we have received 2 sets of amendments to this draft decision. One was submitted by Spain, China, Azerbaijan, Burkina Faso, Cuba, Kyrgyzstan, and the other one was submitted by Australia. While the original draft decision called for the deferral of the examination of this nomination, both amendments support the inscription of this property on the World Heritage List. And now I'm going to go and read through the amendments from the top. So both set of amendments support the complete deletion of paragraph 2. And then for paragraph 3, which would now become the new paragraph 2, while both amendments support the inscription, the set of amendment that was sent in by the group of country would inscribe this property on the list on the basis of criteria 2, 3, and 5, And the amendment we received by Australia would support the inscription of this property on the basis of criteria 2 and 3. And as we had the discussions that took just place, Madam Chair, if I may, through you, request from the delegation of Australia whether they indeed wish to delete the reference to criterion 5.
Australia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're happy to include 5 following our clarification from ICOMOS. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In that case, we're going to amend it on the screen. So now we have both amendments that support the inscription of this property on the basis of criteria 2, 3, and 5. And then we have the proposal of Australia to keep amended some parts of this paragraph and move them further down below after the provisional statement of outstanding universal value. So we're going to come back to these later. And then going further down below, for new paragraph 3, consistent with the inscription, we now have the provisional statement of outstanding universal value. And consistent with what we just heard from the distinguished delegation of Australia, I suggest that we, yes, thank you, that we keep the justification of criteria 5. Then we have the assessment of conditions of integrity and authenticity, as well as the management and protection requirements. And then we have the proposal of the new paragraph 4, which would be parts of the former paragraph 3, and I will now read these out. Recommends that the state party give consideration to the following. Refocus the statement of outstanding universal value to reflect the criteria for which the property has been inscribed on the World Heritage List, full stop. Finalize an integrated conservation and management plan for the proposed property, including strategies on risk preparedness and disaster response. As part of the overall conservation and management plan, prioritize immediate conservation activities at all serial components which are at risk of collapse or in condition of serious deterioration. And then going down below for paragraph 5, we have 2 options. The amendment submitted by the group of countries is for a new text for paragraph 5, which would read, recommends the state party to facilitate the organization of another mission by the advisory body to Iran in order to adjust some relevant concerns related to the property. And now we have the amendment proposed by Australia, which would be essentially to keep the original wording that we had. And then we have the proposal of a new paragraph 6 from Australia, which would read, request the state party to submit to the World Heritage Centre by 1st of December 2018 a report on the implementation of the above-mentioned recommendations for examination by the World Heritage Committee at its 43rd session in 2019. If I may, Madam Chair, make a small suggestion here, just taking into account paragraph 169 of the operational guidelines. I believe that the deadline for the submission should be 1st of February 2019 for an examination that would take place, yes, during the 43rd session. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Norway, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Norway supports the amendments from Australia and para 4, 5, and 6, including a mission in para 4. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Australia, you have the floor. No? Thank you. So Spain? Spain, please.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Y por coherencia con lo que señalé ayer, creo que las recomendaciones adicionales propuestas por Australia en su enmienda contribuyen a reforzar la protección del bien y, por tanto, España también la apoya.
Thank you very much. Bahrain, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to bring up the point again of the criteria. If members of the committee decides to retain criteria number 5, we believe that the reference of boundary modification should remain as expressed by ICOMOS, as these critical elements are currently excluded from the boundaries. So the reference, I think, should be retained if the committee decides to keep criteria 5 as a basis of inscription, to make sure that those elements are within the property.
Thank you very much. Australia, please.
Thank you. We were just going to agree with the previous comment by Kuwait. Thank you.
Kyrgyzstan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our delegation thinks that these two sets of amendments can be combined, so we agree with the proposal of Australia.
Thank you. Yes, the rapporteur, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So after this discussion, you will see on the screen, we have noted that the delegation of Bahrain and also Australia supports in new paragraph 4 maintaining small c, which now would become the small b, about the adjustment of the boundaries. And from the other intervening committee members, we have heard support overall for these amendments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there any other comments? Okay. So I therefore declare draft decision 42-8B 21 as amended adopted. So on your behalf, I congratulate Iran, and I give them the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This site, the committee did already inscribe, is a part of what has remained from Sassanid Empire, and indeed its motherland is an outstanding evidence of the splendor and might of this great empire.
Thanks to committee members, thanks to ICOMOS, Secretariat, and the hospitality of hosting country. May I say the 2 lines of some poem I wrote about that? These wondrous, numerous world welcome you with delight to visit them as a newly inscribed World Heritage Site. The richness of a great empire stretching over territories vast, whose monuments bear testimony to this glorious past. A perfectly circular city astonishes our eye, as fire temples and fortress tower against the sky. Scenes of royal triumph are in living rock engraved, while a mighty statue of an emperor is embraced within a cave. Most importantly, Savestan Monument is indeed the home of the perfection of the world's square-cornered dome. An architectural element invented during this golden age, and which surely deserves its place in history's world stage. Our dear WHS continues its journey of the recognition of one another's heritage, values, thought, and tradition.
Thank you very much.
Remember,
yeah, they will go outside. Now, our next site is Japan. In Japan, the hidden Christian sites in the Nagasaki region. I now invite ICOMOS to present the nomination of the site. And before that, I give the Secretariat, Mr. Balsamo, the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We received a factual error notification concerning the nomination and the evaluation for the nomination of the hidden Christian sites in the Nagasaki region. And in this factual error notification, the advisory bodies recognize factual errors that are implying changes to the text of the proposed statement of OUV, and these factual changes are being already integrated in the text. The factual error notification is to be found on page 72 of the English version of document INF 8 before, and on page 76 of the French version of the same document. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And now the ICOMOS, please, report.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I'm now presenting the ICOMOS evaluation for the hidden Christian sites in Nagasaki region in Japan. The text of this evaluation can be found on page 113 of the document INF 8B1. Located in Nagasaki and Kumamoto prefectures in the northern western part of Kyushu Island and the Japanese archipelago, the 12 components of this serial nomination encompass 10 villages, 1 castle, and 1 cathedral, dating from between 17th and 19th centuries. The 12-component serial site encompass an overall area of 5,565 hectares and are surrounded by a buffer zone with a total area of 12,253 hectares. Together, those 12 serial sites reflect the earliest activities of the Christian missionaries and settlers in Japan, including the earlier phase of the encounter, a subsequent era of prohibition and persecution of the Christian faith and settlers, as well as the final phase of the revitalization of the Christian communities after the official lifting of the prohibition. Those 12 components are categorized into 4 stages, mainly demonstrated each historical stage of the distinctive cultural tradition of the hidden Christian, and it will be presented here according to those 4 categories. So stage 1, the event that triggered the ban of Christianity and the subsequent formation of the hidden Christian religious tradition, is illustrated by the remains of the Hara Castle, which is the component 1. The stage 2, the development of the hidden Christian religious tradition in different ways, is illustrated by 5 components. The first is the Kasuga village and the sacred places of Hirado. So those are component 2 and 3. The second is Sakitsu village in Amakusa, which is component 4. The third is the Sucho village in Sotome, which is component 5. And the fourth is the Ono village in Sotome, which is component 6. So the stage 3, where the migration strategies that the hidden Christian used to maintain their religious communities, is illustrated also by 4 components. The first are the villages in Kuroshima Island, which is component 7. The second are the remains of the village on Nozaki Island, which is component 8. The third are the village in Kashiragashima Island, component 9. And the fourth element are the villages in Hizaka Island, which is component 10. Finally, the stage 4, the event that triggered the new phase and the tradition and the ultimate end of the religious tradition, is illustrated by 2 components. The first is the Egami village on Naro Island and its surrounding components. And the second is the Ora Cathedral, which is component 12. In its evaluation, ICOMOS considered that the comparative analysis justified consideration of the serial property for the World Heritage List, that the serial approach is justified and the selection of sites is appropriate. The nominated property meets criteria 3 and conditions of authenticity and integrity. ICOMOS also consider that the boundaries of the nominated property and of its buffer zones are adequate. Legal protection in place and the protective measure for the property are also considered adequate. The conservation strategy are commendable and the conservation activities undertaken are largely adequate. Finally, ICOMOS recommend that the hidden Christian sites of Nagasaki region, Japan, be inscribed on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 3. ICOMOS recommend that the state party give consideration to the following 4 points: recording and archiving the fabric of abandoned villages, churches, and cemeteries, developing a communication strategy to inform local community groups and individual owners about financial assistance which is available for conservation projects from the local, prefectural, and national government, undertaking a study on the carrying capacity and management of potential tourism at the components of the property, having particular regard to the physical and social circumstances concerns from each component, and finally assessing new development within the property in accordance with the ICOMOS guidelines on heritage impact assessment for cultural World Heritage properties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any comments? No, there is one here. So now, Spain, please, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente. Efectivamente, la delegación del Reino de España quiere felicitar a Japón por la candidatura presentada y el excelente trabajo realizado. Recordar que esta candidatura ya vino al comité en el año 2015 y se propuso un DIFER en donde el Estado parte, en colaboración con ICOMOS, han hecho un trabajo magnífico para presentar una candidatura mucho más consistente y que en el día de hoy creo que merece su inscripción en la lista de Patrimonio Mundial, y el Estado español apoya esta inscripción. Por otra parte, nos congratula que este tipo de candidaturas, la presencia de huellas de los misioneros europeos que fueron a Japón, a Oriente, a predicar, especialmente encabezados por el español San Francisco Javier, haya consolidado un intercambio cultural entre Occidente y Oriente y que llega hasta nuestros días y es merecedora de la inscripción en la lista de Patrimonio Mundial. Por tanto, España avala y apoya la inscripción en la lista de esta candidatura. Muchas gracias, Japón, y gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you very much. In fact, we have in front of us 21 sites, and we don't have time. If there is any objection, we can just share with you your views. But if you accept, I don't think that we have time to. So. Please be very brief. Now I give the floor to Norway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is with great pleasure we warmly congratulate the State Party and welcomes this outstanding serial nomination to the World Heritage List. As already mentioned, the State Party withdrew the nomination during the ICOMOS evaluation process last time in conjunction with the deferral recommendation, and asked for assistance in order to reconfigure the nomination, and has now returned with a successful nomination to be inscribed on the World Heritage List. And Japan, I wish to thank you from Norway for this good practice example of how to work with nominations, showing the committee and the states parties to this convention that persistent, scientifically based efforts, patience and close collaboration between the State Party, World Heritage Centre and the advisory bodies indeed pays off. The end result is a high-quality nomination in conformity with the high standards and expectations we all have to World Heritage. So I wish to say, osurerimasu, Japan, for adhering to the principles of the Convention and the operational guidelines. We have full confidence that the State Party will observe the recommendations in paragraph 4 of the draft decision, and in particular the concerns regarding tourism in several of the components and related communities. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Brazilian delegation considers that the Syria property proposed presents along its 12 components, sites, centuries of history and intertwining elements of the encounter of East and West. The Brazilian delegation would like to commend the efforts undertaken by the State Party with the study of the carrying capacity and management of potential tourism, taking into account the physical and social circumstances, constraints of each component. This is a positive example on dealing with the challenging issue of conciliating the promotion of tourism and the management and protection measures of the property. The hidden Christian sites undoubtedly bear unique testimony of human history, and we congratulate Japan in this very special moment that sheds light on the cultural bridges between countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now Cuba, please.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Nuestra delegación también desea sumarse a las felicitaciones al Estado parte por la candidatura presentada. En aras del tiempo, solamente queríamos resaltar la importancia de una nominación de esta naturaleza que también envía un mensaje sobre la tolerancia, el respeto interreligioso y la necesidad de un mayor diálogo entre los Estados. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. And now Indonesia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Indonesia would like to commend the high quality of document presented by the State Party and comprehensive work of the advisory body to make the inscription possible. We are pleased to note the commitment of the State Party to take concrete conservation strategies of the property, which signifies the preservation of distinctive religious tradition in its time and justified along the line of criterion 3 that bears a unique and exceptional testimony of the cultural tradition or to a civilization which has disappeared. Despite the extensive components of the property that consist of 10 villages, Hara Castle, and 1 cathedral that date back from between 7th to 19th century, Japan has successfully conserved the authenticity and the integrity of the property, maintained adequate boundaries, and applied an appropriate management of the property that all involves local government, local community groups, and private owners. This properly would be a valuable addition on the World Heritage list following inscription. Congratulations, Japan.
Thank you very much. Australia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We, of course, also support the inscription. We just wanted to note that we were particularly impressed by the discussion of authenticity and integrity in the nomination dossier and in the ICOMOS evaluation. And this discussion tied these requirements to both the tangible and intangible attributes by highlighting the continual use and function of the places over centuries. This connection between communities, contemporary communities, and the places associated with the hidden Christian traditions is recognised as a key attribute of the property, and I think that this is a really important outcome of this nomination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tunisia, please.
Merci Madame la Présidente. La Tunisie souhaite relever avec grande satisfaction la qualité technique de ce dossier relatif aux sites chrétiens cachés dans la région de Nagasaki et qui témoigne aussi d'une remarquable coopération entre l'État partie et les organes consultatifs de notre Convention. Ce dossier nous interpelle de manière très importante quand les situations que peut rencontrer la condition humaine est productrice dans n'importe quelle situation de culture et de civilisation, fut-elle à un certain moment des conditions de restriction et de persécution. Ce dossier est à souligner de manière positive également tant il laisse transparaître un travail d'implication des autorités locales ainsi que de la société civile locale, ce qui est un gage demain d'une plus grande protection et de préservation de ce site. La Tunisie partage amplement l'avis d'ICOMOS quant à la rencontre entre ce dossier et le critère 3, et peut-être au-delà de ce critère. La Tunisie appuie avec énergie l'inscription de ce site.
Thank you very much. And now Hungary, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Only to be short. From time to time, this religion could not be freely practiced, but the Christian communities could preserve their belief and strong solidarity. The nomination also proved then that the state parties support these communities. The hidden Christian sites are flourishing again, which clearly proves the strength and openness of the Japanese society. The nomination of the hidden Christian sites of Nagasaki and Nagasaki regions shows this fact, the positive movements in order to create a balanced conciliation. Therefore, this property can be an extraordinarily important example in the reconciliation and creation of friendly relations among nations and religious communities. On the basis of these above-mentioned reasons, the Hungarian delegation strongly supports inscribing the property in the World Heritage List and congratulates the state party for the successful nomination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now Tanzania, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Tanzania delegation congratulates the state party for having undertaken such a successful nomination dossier under criteria 3. This site bears unique testimony to the history of people and their communities in the wake of religious reconnaissance for over 2 centuries. With this understanding on the nomination of such a unique site, the Tanzania delegation further encouraged the state party to implement the recommendations of the Center and its advisory bodies, which, among other things, includes recording and archiving components within the property. Therefore, Madam Chair, Tanzania fully supports the draft decision to inscribe the property in the World Heritage List. Congratulations, Japan.
Thank you very much. Now Australia, please. Azerbaijan, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Azerbaijan congratulates the state party not only with quality nomination, but also with the work has been done with the advisory bodies to present this nomination and get this high appraisal of the inscription. Indeed, this property, which consists of 12 components, which reflects the different periods of the introduction of Christianity in Japan, bears a unique testimony to human history and the communities who secretly transmitted their faith in Christianity. So Azerbaijan joins the others in congratulating Japan for this inscription. Thank you.
Thank you very much. St. Kitts, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. St. Kitts and Nevis commends the State Party of Japan on the work done on this significant nomination that chronicles the hidden Christian faith over 2 centuries in Japan during times of prohibition and its subsequent revitalization thereafter. It is our belief that this serial nomination, evidenced in the 12 sites identified, is an excellent addition to the list and encourages the State Party to consider the recommendations of ICOMOS, especially in the area of potential tourism and the carrying capacity of the components. St. Kitts and Nevis congratulates Japan on the inscription of the hidden Christian sites in the Nagasaki region. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Uganda, please.
Madam Chair, Uganda supports the nomination, the inscription of this heritage property on the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Zimbabwe, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Zimbabwe joins others in commending the State Party for this excellent nomination, which illustrates the resilience of people during a prohibition stage. We would like to particularly commend the state party for the protective measures that have been put for each of the components in according to the national heritage laws and regulations. We particularly want to mention the laws, the Cultural Property Act, as well as the Landscape Act and other laws and regulations, which the state party has put in place to make sure that the negative impacts will not destroy and will help to preserve the site. We also want to thank ICOMOS for the work that has been done together with the state party, and would like to endorse what Norway said about the cooperation between advisory bodies and state parties. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And now our reporter, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I haven't received any amendments on the proposed draft decision. Thank you.
Accordingly, we therefore go for the adoption. I therefore declare draft decision 42-8B22 adopted. On your behalf, I congratulate Japan, and I give them the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. On behalf of the government of Japan, I express my deepest appreciation to all the member states of the committee and the ICOMOS for deciding inscription of the hidden Christian sites in the Nagasaki region. This is a testimony that the value of the distinctive tradition of faith in Christianity, nurtured in the Nagasaki region during the 2 centuries of prohibition, is now recognized by the international community. I wish to share this historic felicity with everybody concerned, in particular people of the Nagasaki region who have long cherished and maintained the inscribed properties and are committed to preserve and protect them towards the future. Now I invite Mr. Nakamura, Governor of the Nagasaki Prefecture, to say a few words. Governor.
Good morning. I am Hodo Nakamura, the Governor of Nagasaki Prefecture. I am greatly pleased that the hidden Christian site in the Nagasaki region, treasures we received from our forebears, have been inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List. The history of the hidden Christian, I believe, contains a universal message of peace, which is still relevant even today. We will make every possible effort to preserve this heritage and share its history with people around the world. I hope it will become a source of pride for the people of Nagasaki, while making a deep impression to the visitors who come to see it. To conclude, I'd like to extend my deep gratitude to all of you here and everyone who helped us through the nomination process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And our next site will be in the Republic of Korea, Sansa, Buddhist mountain monasteries. And I give the floor first to the Secretariat, Mr. Balsamo, and then to the ICOMOS. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We received a factual error notification concerning the evaluation of the Sansa Buddhist mountain monasteries in Korea, which is to be found on page 79 of the English version of document in Fate Before, and on page 83 of the French version of the same document. And in this factual error notification, the advisory bodies recognize the factual errors that imply changes to the text of the proposed statement of OUB, and these factual changes are being already integrated in our text. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. This is the presentation of the ICOMOS evaluation of Sansa, Buddhist mountain monasteries in Korea. Sansa are Buddhist mountain monasteries located throughout the southern provinces of the Korean peninsula. A serial nomination of 7 temples has been proposed to represent these ancient and continuing centers of spiritual practice. The temples have historical associations with different schools of Buddhist thought and contain many individually notable historic structures. The nominated monasteries were all established between the 7th to the 9th centuries and cover the major schools of Buddhism prevailing in the Korean peninsula. The spatial arrangements of the 7 components demonstrate common traits of Korean Buddhist monasteries, including one or more madang or open yard and their natural mountain settings. The mountain monasteries have survived to the present as living centers of faith and daily practice despite centuries of suppression and the impacts of Japanese invasion in the late 16th century. The 3 kingdoms of Korea were united by Shilla, and the first mountain monasteries were established in the 7th century. Buddhism became a religion of the masses at this time. Seon Buddhism, which places emphasis on self-realization through meditation, spread through Korea in the 9th century. In the Joseon dynasty, Confucianism was promoted and Buddhism became suppressed. The number of monasteries was reduced during the 15th and 16th centuries. Mountain monasteries at that time became the lifeblood of Korean Buddhism. Japanese invasions at the end of the 16th century severely damaged a number of the mountain monasteries, which were then rebuilt. The temples were nominated to demonstrate typical aspects of Korean Buddhist monasteries, such as the arrangement of buildings within the natural topography and their spatial configuration. However, ICOMOS considered that the focus on the spatial layout was not convincing, given that this feature is very common. Throughout exchanges with the State Party, it was possible to more clearly articulate the potential outstanding universal value of the Sansa, based on specific intangible and historical aspects of Korean Buddhism. The operational guidelines require that each component of a serial property should contribute to the outstanding universal value in a substantial and specific way. Therefore, the method of selecting the 7 components from the 952 Buddhist temples in Korea, 785 of which are located in mountain areas, was a focus of the exchanges with the State Party. ICOMOS concluded that some components were more strongly justified than others. In terms of their historical significance and ability to represent the proposed outstanding universal value, Byungjongsa, Magoksa, and Siamnansa are weaker than the other 4 components. The comparative analysis was improved greatly through engagement with the State Party. While ICOMOS considers that it supports the potential for Korean Buddhist mountain monasteries to be included in the World Heritage List, it has not justified the inclusion of all components. The integrity of the series as a whole is justified for 4 components only. ICOMOS considers that the conditions of authenticity and integrity of the individual sites have been met. In relation to their criteria, ICOMOS considers that criterion 3 has been demonstrated for 4 components. These sacred places provide an exceptional testimony to their long and continuing traditions of Korean Buddhist practice. ICOMOS does not consider that the other criterion proposed by the State Party, criterion 4, is demonstrated. ICOMOS considers that the boundaries and buffer zones are adequate and the nominated Sansa are very well cared for. The main threat to the property is forest fire, and potential future pressures include tourism growth and new building construction projects within the complexes. ICOMOS recommends that 4 of the 7 components forming the nominated series of Sansa, namely Tongdosa, Biosa, Biopjusa, and Dehungsa, be inscribed in the World Heritage List on the basis of Criterion 3, and that the remaining components should not be inscribed. A draft statement of outstanding universal value is provided, and ICOMOS has also made several further recommendations. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Spain, please, you have the floor. Spain.
Muchas gracias, Presidenta. Queremos trasladar la enhorabuena al Estado parte de Corea por la inscripción del bien de Sansa, monasterios budistas de montaña de Corea. El expediente de candidatura propuesto por este Estado parte propone un bien seriado integrado por 7 monasterios representativos de la cultura budista monástica en Corea desde el siglo XVII hasta la actualidad en base al criterio 3. El organismo consultivo efectivamente propone inscribir solo 4 de los 7 componentes. No obstante, una vez examinado con detalle el expediente de la candidatura, la delegación del Gobierno del Reino de España, entendemos que los 7 monasterios constituyen una serie completa necesaria para demostrar la evolución histórica del budismo coreano a través del tiempo. Cada componente es portador de un valor y un significado, y solo en su conjunto es posible entender la totalidad de sus valores. Los 7 monasterios están estrechamente relacionados a través de las distintas escuelas del budismo y creencias populares sobre los que se fundan. Por ello, agradecemos al Estado parte el excelente trabajo en la elaboración de esta candidatura y proponemos la inscripción de los 7 sitios en base a dicho criterio. Debemos recordar que ya hay precedentes en la lista de Patrimonio Mundial y por no comentar algunos de ciertos países, dentro de España tenemos las islas del Mudéjar, las iglesias, del Mudéjar, la obra de Gaudí, todos los hitos incluidos dentro del Camino de Santiago, tanto el Camino francés como el Camino de la Costa, y sobre todo los yacimientos de arte rupestre del Mediterráneo, que son más de 800. Todos estos en conjunto muestran ese valor en virtud del cual se inscribieron en la lista de Patrimonio Mundial, pero reconocemos que no todos tienen el mismo valor, pero entre todos ellos sí que forman ese valor universal excepcional. Muchas gracias y por eso apoyamos la inscripción de los 7 monasterios.
Thank you very much. And now, China, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. ICOMOS evaluates that Sansa Buddhist mountain monasteries in Korea meets requirement of OUV on the basis of criteria the 3rd and recommended the property's inscription on the World Heritage List. They consider Sansa to be of OUV on the grounds that it demonstrates history of Korean Buddhism from its foundation in the 7th century to the present day. However, ICOMOS recommends to exclude 3 out of the 7 nominated components. We would like to recall that Sansa is a serial nomination composed of 7 temples, according to the paragraph 137 of the operational guidelines. The serial property is as a whole of OUV. Only with inclusion of the 3 temples currently being excluded, the evolution of Korean Buddhism and its living tradition are perfectly explained and demonstrated without question. Sansa presents its OUV of living cultural tradition with its well-preserved Buddhist sanctuary. Not only the monastic buildings, but the reclusive, contemplative, and scholarly vocations have remained substantially intact. Historically, Mongasa served as the base for monks' militia in the 16th century and has been a center for the monk artists. Somasa established mourning rituals, which is one of the most important Buddhist intangible heritage in Korea. Bongjosa is one of the rare examples which avoided damage from the war and has been preserved some of the oldest extant wooden structures in Korea. It is an essential component to justify continuity of Korean Buddhism. Therefore, there is no compelling reason to exclude 3 temples in the aspects of continuity of tradition and significance of social role, which also recognized by ICOMOS. In conclusion, all the 3 monasteries currently being excluded by ICOMOS makes significant contribution to the OUV of Sansa, which demonstrates distinctive history of Korean Buddhism from the foundations in the 7th century to the present. We would like to stress it is impossible to tell the whole story of Sansa without the 3 temples. Therefore, we submit the amendment being convinced that the whole 7 monasteries, including the 3 components, should be inscribed on the World Heritage List. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, Indonesia, please. Indonesia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have before us a document of a nomination that reflects excellent works both from the State Party and the advisory bodies. We recognize that Sansa, Buddhist mountain monasteries in Korea, that is composed of 7 temples, has an undeniable value to be inscribed as World Heritage. The 7 selected components all reflect Buddhist monasteries or temple complexes of great age and continuity. Indonesia are of the view that all 7 components are well conserved, well protected, and well managed. The key architectural elements of the property are well maintained, as well as their spatial arrangements, landscape settings, and living spiritual practices. The 3 other temples that are originally recommended not to be described also represent outstanding examples of the rich history and evolution of Korean Buddhism. All 7 elements are proof of an exceptional testimony to a cultural tradition or to a civilization which is still living, which is criteria 3, under which the property is nominated. In this regard, Indonesia recommends the property with all its 7 elements to be inscribed as a World Heritage in its entirety. I thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much. Hungary, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The Syria Nomination submitted by the Republic of Korea is a well-elaborated selection of 7 significant Buddhist mountain monasteries from lots of monasteries with similar significance. While the advisory body agreed with this selection, noted that 3 of them should be excluded from the nomination. However, the State Party, in its reflection on factual errors, could point out the relevance of the nomination with the selected all 7 sites. Full evaluation approach, they are on the same level of extraordinary significance and rightfully have OUV. Therefore, Hungary supports the Korean nomination and recommends it for inscription with all the proposed 7 elements and congratulates the State Party for the successful nomination dossier. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Uganda, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, ICOMOS recommended Sansa, the Buddhist mountain monasteries in Korea, to be inscribed on the World Heritage List in its evaluation report. However, my delegation notes ICOMOS' exclusion of 3 out of the original 7 components in its recommendation, commenting that the 3 are considered to present a weaker historical significance. Madam Chair Lady, Sansa, a Syria property, is a living testimony to the Korean Buddhism from the 7th century, which was already acknowledged by ICOMOS. However, in all the 7 temples, the most distinctive features of Sansa, which have accommodated diverse beliefs over the centuries based on the original schools, are manifest as a corporate and vast cultural treasure trove. Commending the efforts by the Republic of Korea to establish a coordinated management system for the 7 monasteries, We would therefore like to join other distinguished delegations in conveying our fervent support for the amended draft decision to inscribe Sansa Buddhist monasteries of Korea with all the 7 components to the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brazil, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 2 very brief comments. The first one is to commend the State Party of Korea for the high technical quality of this dossier, which accurately presented the Korean Buddhist monastic culture over the last 14th century. The second comment is to convey that the Brazilian experts understand that all the 7 monasteries are essential and indispensable to feature the aspects of the evolution of Korean Buddhism and its living tradition with regard to the constitution of the outstanding universal value of the property. We believe that this living tradition is another very important aspect of this nomination, which is the dimension of intangible heritage linked to this property. And this reaffirms the inevitable dialogue between the 1972 and the 2003 Cultural Conventions of UNESCO, very brilliantly demonstrated in this nomination. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Bosnia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Bosnia and Herzegovina is supporting the amendment concerning the inclusion of all 7 monasteries in the inscription of the proposed site. As the previous speakers, we think that with the inclusion of 3 temples, Bongyang-sa, Magong-sa, and Seomam-sa, which are currently excluded, the evolution of Korean Buddhism and the living tradition could be completely understood. We consider also that the inclusion is also justified from the point of view of criterion free. Therefore, Bosnia and Herzegovina supports the inscription of the whole site as proposed by the State Party. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, Norway, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving us the floor. The Republic of Korea has presented a nomination which brilliantly outlines the specificities of Korean Buddhism through a series of mountain temples with a long time depth going back to the 7th century and all the way to present time. We are well aware of the many exchanges between the State Party and ICOMOS, and we are very pleased to see the final recommendation for inscription under Criterion 3, and we warmly congratulate the State Party with the nomination of a very high quality and standard. We also wish to thank ICOMOS for a well-prepared presentation and thorough evaluation of this complex nomination. Having carefully studied the supplementary information provided by the State Party, we fully recognize the historical significance of Bongyong-sa, Magok-sa, and Seonam-sa temples. Norway initially supported the draft decision in light of ICOMOS' argument that the integrity for the whole series can only be met for Tongdo-sa, Buseok-sa, Beopyu-sa, and Dahung-sa temples. And we considered that this argument was further strengthened by the ICOMOS statement that Criterion 3 is demonstrated for these 4 of the 7 proposed components. We have anyhow listened carefully to the arguments presented by our distinguished colleagues in the committee, and we would, if time allows, just ask for a little clarification from ICOMOS following the arguments that we've heard in the room. We wish to say kamsamida to the Republic of Korea for bringing this fascinating nomination forward and warmly welcomes this addition to the World Heritage List. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Kuwait, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. We would like to remind the committee that a serial property as whole is to be outstanding value, and as we can see from paragraph 137 of the operational guideline. ICOMOS recommended Sansa to be inscribed in the World Heritage List and recognizes the value of Sansa as it's being kept distinctive monastic culture of Korean Buddhism from its foundation in the 7th century to the present time, which is truly appreciated. We completely agree with the distinguished delegation of China that the reason of exclusion of 3 temples by ICOMOS seems not clear and there is no rationale in it. We believe that Sansa, with only 4 components, cannot meet the requirements of integrity as a serial property is a key and important point. It cannot fully demonstrate how Korean Buddhism has been maintained and evolved. Therefore, we believe that all 7 components should be included in Sansa and on the World Heritage List. With full recognition of the strong attributes displaying OUV and the property of Sansa, we hope State Party establish and maintain coordinated management system for the 7 monasteries as a serial property. We are convinced the Republic of Korea will continue its effort to keep the property well preserved, as it has been doing for years, and establish cultural heritage maintenance plan as recommended by the committee. I know we are all in this committee because of our passion and drive in preserving our world heritage. It is, after all, one word, and instead of reading of these fantastic and timeless monasteries, UNESCO is the one to keep the stories alive. Therefore, the State of Kuwait support the amendment put forward by the distinguished delegation of China, and would like to have whole nominated property to be inscribed in the list. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Tunisia, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. La Tunisie souligne avec grande satisfaction la qualité technique du dossier présenté par l'État partie. Ce haut lieu de culture bouddhiste, avec ses traditions encore vivantes, nous interpelle et l'ensemble des éléments présentés nous semble mériter dans leur totalité une inscription, tant cette offre nous permet d'avoir une cohérence et une intelligibilité qu'il serait dommage de ne pas reconnaître dans notre décision. Je ne reviendrai pas sur les arguments techniques puisque la Tunisie est co-sponsor du projet d'amendement de la résolution. Donc nous apportons notre appui à l'inscription de l'ensemble des composantes de ce site.
Thank you very much. Zimbabwe, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Zimbabwean Delegation welcomes the draft decision to inscribe the Sansa Buddhist mountain monasteries in Korea under Criteria 3. However, we note with concern that only 4 out of the 7 components forming the nomination series, namely Tongdosa, Pesioska, Piochusa, Johunsa, are proposed for inscription. We believe the integrity of all individual components has been demonstrated and that the conditions of authenticity of the sites that comprise the series were fully met. While Bonjonsa, one of the components that was excluded, is smaller in scale, it nonetheless has the various elements that make up the Buddhist monastery that include a distinct spatial configuration similar to other 6 components. In addition, Bonjonsa also represents the same religious thoughts and beliefs of Korean Buddhism and the continuity of the religion through to the present day. As such, what is more important is the values rather than its scale in comparison to the other 6 components. On the second aspect, in which the advisory body argued that the historic significance of the excluded 3 components was weaker. It is not clear how they measured the historical significance and came up with to that conclusion. For instance, Bonjosa is the enshrinement for the 2 Buddha beliefs, that is the Sakumi and Amitabha. It also has the oldest extant wooden structures in Korea, thus attesting to their period with the other 4 components proposed for inscription by Archaeological. The other 2, Makoska and Sionamsa, also belong to the same time period, that's the 9th century, with Dahengsa proposed for nomination. It is also important to note that the property is being nominated on the basis of living cultural traditions, which are all exhibited in 7 components. As such, Zimbabwe supports the draft amendment to inscribe all the 7 components of the Sansa Buddhist mountain monasteries as submitted by the Republic of Korea, and would like to congratulate the State Party for bringing out such an important nomination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cuba, you have the floor.
Sí, gracias, señora presidenta. Deseamos felicitar en primer lugar al Estado parte por la calidad del expediente presentado, así como la información brindada por ICOMOS que nos permite poder hacer un análisis mucho más profundo de la evaluación. Tomamos nota de la justificación del valor universal excepcional que presenta el informe de ICOMOS, en el cual nos permite comprender que existen elementos comunes que justifican la inscripción de esta serie. Nos referimos a la tipología, a la evolución del budismo en Corea desde el siglo VII hasta el siglo IX, así como las diferentes escuelas de budismo que se ven presentes en este elemento. Por ello, nuestra delegación desea apoyar las enmiendas presentadas que justifican que se incluyan el resto de los 3 templos que propone ICOMOS dejar fuera, un poco para cumplir con ese valor de integridad real que tiene este sitio y sus 7 componentes que nos permiten hoy apoyar la inscripción del mismo mediante los criterios 3 y 4 de la lista. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We also support the inscription of this property under criterion 3 for all 7 components rather than the recommended 4. But we'd like to say that this support is based on supplementary information circulated by the State Party only recently. It does make a compelling argument for inclusion of all 7 of the components, but we're concerned that we only received this information recently and that ICOMOS did not have access to this information during its evaluation process, and we suggest that this is further evidence of the need for review for the timeframes for nomination and evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now Burkina Faso.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Le Burkina Faso soutient les amendements proposés en vue de l'inscription du bien sur la base du critère 3 et avec ses 7 composantes. Je vous remercie.
Tanzania, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Tanzania joins hands with other distinguished delegates in conveying our warm congratulations to the State Party of Korea on the nomination of this unique site. Tanzania notes that the 7 selected components include some of the best preserved and the most influential to the Korean Buddhist monasteries on which they were founded in the 7th century. We also commend the analysis work of the advisory bodies on this particular nomination. Chair, while connected in their functions as comprehensive monasteries, the 7 components continue to maintain their tradition. Sansa fulfill their social role to integrate society as well as the religious role of healing the scars of the wars in the 16th, 17th centuries through their religious rituals. Chair, Tanzania, in order to maintain the already existing outstanding universal value of this property, Tanzania wish to encourage the State Party to take note of the implementation of the recommendations as advised by the advisory bodies. Finally, Chair, Tanzania fully supports the amended draft decision to inscribe Sansa Buddhist mountain monasteries, which include the 7 components in the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 3. Once again, congratulations, Korea.
Thank you very much. Bahrain, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We first would like to add our voice to the rest of our distinguished representative of state parties in the committee to congratulate the Republic of Korea on their exceptional and very well comprehensive and exceptionally prepared nomination file for the Buddhist mountain monasteries. While ICOMOS recommended only 4 components of Sana, the Buddhist mountain monasteries, to be inscribed on the World Heritage List, ICOMOS pointed out that the 3 are considered to present weaker historical significance. In our view, all the 7 temples are living heritage where monks who have been protected and upheld Korean Buddhism up until today lead their lives and continue their practice. Their traditional way of life and living quarters are also well preserved, attesting to the sustainable life and monastic culture. We believe that Sansa is a valuable heritage representing interdependence between tangible and intangible cultural heritage. However, in agreement with the advisory body's concern on future visitors' pressures, we hope that the Republic of Korea develop appropriate measures to mitigate the pressures to protect the monastic community and its intangible cultural traditions. Therefore, we would like, and we are pleased to add our voices again to other state parties and to agree to the amended draft presented by the distinguished state party of China that for the inscription of the property with the 7 outstanding monasteries as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Azerbaijan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Azerbaijan supported the amendments with a strong view that this proposed nomination property, Sansa, in its totality bear the outstanding universal value. We believe that these 7 selected components include some of the best preserved and most influential of the Korean Buddhist monasteries, and their national significance is evident. They demonstrate the historical and contemporary importance of Buddhism in Korea, continuing spiritual practices, and illustrate both common and distinct facets across the many extant temples. With this in mind, Azerbaijan supports the inscription of this site with all components. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, Guatemala, please.
Gracias, señora Presidenta. Agradecemos nuevamente a ICOMOS y al Estado parte por esta nominación y el análisis realizado. Consideramos que los 7 elementos sometidos para la inscripción original representan en su conjunto un ejemplo de la evolución del budismo y su tradición entre los siglos 7 y 9 por su vínculo con diferentes escuelas. No repetiré todas las características y valores que ya los miembros del comité y la nominación incluyen, pero quisiera destacar que esta nominación misma presenta un vínculo existente con la salvaguarda del patrimonio inmaterial, las prácticas de la tecnología, las tradiciones y los conocimientos ancestrales asociados a los elementos tangibles propuestos por el Estado parte, por lo que le otorga un valor agregado digno de ser considerado por este comité, como ya lo ha expresado acertadamente la delegación de Brasil y algunos otros miembros del mismo. Tomando en consideración los resultados del análisis de integridad y autenticidad, así como las recomendaciones para el manejo de los bienes que se integran a la lista del patrimonio, la conservación y el manejo de visitantes, que estamos seguros que la República de Corea asumirá con las mejores prácticas, Guatemala copatrocina la enmienda de decisión para la inscripción del sitio bajo el criterio 3, incluyendo los 7 componentes propuestos originalmente, conservando en la decisión las recomendaciones incluidas en el borrador original. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much. And now, St. Kitts, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. St. Kitts and Nevis adds its own congratulations to the Republic of Korea on the inscription of this serial nomination. The Sansa Buddhist mountain monasteries in Korea are a significant representation of Buddhism in Korea. As has been indicated by previous speakers, we too support the proposal of inclusion of all 7 components instead of 4, as has been recommended. We commend the State Party of the Republic of Korea for the extensive work on this nomination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Angola, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous n'allons pas répéter ce que les autres membres du comité ont déjà souligné sur l'importance de ces sites, mais nous aimerions toutefois rajouter un élément important en disant qu'il est impossible de mieux apprécier et de mieux interpréter les symbolismes d'un lieu sacré sans prendre en compte tous les éléments qui constituent le système cohérent et complet du lieu. Par conséquent, l'Angola appuie bien l'inscription de ces sites en prenant en compte tous les éléments, tous les 7 éléments qui sont proposés, comme étant un système complet, et cela justifierait évidemment l'intégrité du bien. Et nous félicitons l'État partie donc de la Corée pour ce merveilleux travail qui a été accompli pour que ces biens soient inscrits sur la liste du patrimoine mondial sous les critères 3 et 6. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. And now I give the floor to ECOMOS to clarify, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and distinguished delegates of the World Heritage Committee. Just to answer the questions raised by Norway, Zimbabwe and others about further explanation of our reasons for the way in which we brought this recommendation to your attention. I think before I do that, I must say that ECOMOS and the State Party of the Republic of Korea went through a long journey together to reach a point of common understanding of this file, and I really thank them for their openness and willingness to do that. However, paragraph 137B, which was revised, I think, in 2011 after the Illinging expert meeting, really asked for a quite tight evaluation of how each component should contribute to nominations and must be able to be justified in their contribution in a substantial, scientific, readily defined and discernible way, and that's the basis on which we undertook this particular decision. So in this particular case, where there are many hundreds of potential sites, how are we to select from such a large number? And we had many exchanges on this point with the State Party and others. And it's true that all 7 are extremely significant places with many important buildings, similar histories, different histories, and many individual differences. And we would wholeheartedly agree with the many comments made by committee members about the importance of the intangible dimension of this property and the importance of recognizing the intangible significance of these temples as part of their outstanding universal value. It's hard to explain in a brief presentation that we just gave you how our thinking went, so I'm grateful to have the chance to explain more. We did not compare the 7 with each other to find out which were, if you like, the best or the most significant, but rather how each of the 7 contributes in a specific, discernible and non-duplicating way to the revised understanding of outstanding universal value. We were aided in this regard by the State Party themselves very significantly by many scholars who contributed to our work through desk reviews. So we ended up with a perception that the important aspects that we were looking for were the 2 main periods of historical development of these monasteries, being the 7th century and then the 9th century, the different schools of Buddhism that they can each represent, and also the degree to which the sites today can represent through historical and contemporary practice what we called the full monastic functions of Korean Buddhism. It was on that basis that we found that some, if you like our statement, that some were more weakly justified than others because they brought similar but less well elaborated aspects to the series. However, we do not wish to entertain a kind of disagreement with the clear consensus that is emerging from the committee discussions. other than to just refer to yesterday's discussion where the distinguished delegate of Brazil brought to this discussion on another case entirely a desire to reflect further on the processes of evaluation of serial properties. We were not able to say so at the time, but I think ICOMOS would strongly welcome that opportunity. I think that in this year's cases, as our information document clearly sets out, we found the issue of the selection of the selection of components in serial properties to be a very common difficulty between ICOMOS's role and the states parties, and have had to work very significantly and deeply with states parties to resolve many issues that would fall generally within this category of our work, and we were very grateful to the delegation of Brazil for bringing that suggestion yesterday. So I thank you for your opportunity to mention these things. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Now the reporter, if you have any amendments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have received amendment on this draft decision presented by Angola, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Brazil, Bosnia, Burkina Faso, China, Guatemala, Kuwait, Kyrgyzstan, Indonesia, St. Kitts and Nevis, Spain, Tunisia, Uganda, and Tanzania. While the original decision would have inscribed only 4 of the 7 nominated serial components, the proposed amendment would inscribe all 7 of these nominated components. Madam Chair, at this point, I would like to make a suggestion on the text in paragraph 2 that actually you can already see reflected in the screen, because the amendment that we have received under paragraph 2 would have proceeded to name all 7 of the nominated serial components. But as the sense of the proposed amendment is to inscribe all the serial components, there seems to be no need to name each one of them, and it would seem more appropriate to simply refer to the name of the original nomination, should the authors of the amendment agree with this suggestion. In the rest of the text, we have smaller amendments, all aimed at making it very clear and coherent that all 7 components would be inscribed on the World Heritage List. And these are the amendments that we received. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I think, ICOMOS, you have some comments? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for taking your attention again, but we wondered whether there should be a provisional statement of outstanding universal value, given that it has been altered from the one drafted by ICOMOS in its evaluation report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Reporter.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, we are going to add the word provisional to the screen right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now I think we'll go to adopt the decision. I therefore declare draft decision 42, 8B 23 adopted as amended. And on your behalf, I congratulate the Republic of Korea, and I give them the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The delegation of the Republic of Korea thanks all the committee members for their wide support for the inscription of Sansa, Buddhist mountain monasteries in Korea. With this decision, all relevant Buddhist monasteries of Korean Buddhism have now been united as one World Heritage Site. Our delegation greatly appreciates valuable encouragement and decision by the committee. I'd now like to invite Korean authority and the Buddhist community for their thanking remarks.
Distinguished committee members, as the administrator of the Cultural Heritage Administration, I am very pleased with the decision. to inscribe Sansa on the World Heritage List. I feel the great responsibility of protecting our new World Heritage Site for Sansa as a serial property. The Republic of Korea will make its utmost effort to establish the coordinated management system. Also, we will carefully implement all the recommendations adopted by the committee in full respect of the operational guidelines. We will inform the committee on future new projects that may impact the property. Again, many thanks to the committee and the Kingdom of Bahrain.
I am Jong-min, Head of Cultural Affairs Department at the Joge Order of Korean Buddhism. I would like to thank all the experts and staff who have put in so much effort for the inscription of Sansa. As a Buddhist monk myself, I am part of the living heritage of the monastic culture and legacy of Korean Buddhism. With the inscription of Sansa as World Heritage, citizens of the world will be able to understand and appreciate this living heritage of Korean monastic culture. We will continue to protect and enhance the Sansa heritage so that the history of Korean monastic culture can be recognized as part of the heritage of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we'll go to the next site. We have two sites for Belgium, number 9 and number 10. And as you have seen in front of you, we will deal with number 10 before, because we received a lot of amendments for number 9, and we want to allocate it first. So we'll deal now with number 10, Belgium, Netherlands. Colonies of benevolence, Belgium, Netherlands, colonies of benevolence. I now invite the ECOMOS to present their presentation, and before I give the floor to Mr. Balsamo to give us the idea before the Secretariat position. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We receive a factual error notification concerning the evaluation of the colonies of benevolence, this nomination put forward by Belgium and Netherlands. And this factual error notification is to be found on page 21 of the English version of document INF 8 before, and on page 25 of the French version of the same document. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. The ECOMOS, please. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Beginning in 1818, the Society of Benevolence founded agricultural colonies in rural areas of the United Kingdom in the Netherlands.
The aim was to create an alternative to the living conditions of the urban poor. By moving this population to the countryside, the cities would be relieved of a major social problem. Later, unfree colonies were also founded with institutions for particular groups of disadvantaged people. In terms of categories, this is a transnational serial nomination of 7 sites. Of the 7 colonies, 5 are in the Netherlands and 2 in Belgium. The colonies were founded in the early 19th century by the Society of Benevolence, whose aim was to provide for large numbers of poor people from the rapidly growing industrial cities a new, beneficial and industrious way of life as self-sufficient farmers, and in so doing, relieve social problems. The colonies took over areas of rough ground and turned them into productive farmland. The colonies could be called a social experiment, inspired by the ideas and ideals of the European Enlightenment, that people's lives could be changed for the better in better surroundings. And the experiment was underpinned by the practical Dutch tradition of reclaiming land. The colonies were not haphazard creations, but carefully planned units with long rows of well-designed houses and small farms set in a pattern of orthogonal roads shaded by avenues of trees. The early colonies, created between 1818 and 1821, were called free colonies as people volunteered to join, and 3 have been nominated. Frederiksord, seen here, was the original has the original headquarters of the Society of Benevolence and includes the house of its founder. In all the colonies, farm buildings were improved in the mid-19th century, and it is largely these later buildings that survive. The free colony of Wilhelmina Oord absorbed 2 smaller colonies. All the free colonies are now what might be called ordinary villages. Williamsoord, the 3rd free colony, has no structures remaining from the founding period, and the western part has now grown into a large 20th century village. The site is also now cut by a motorway and railway. These free colonies never really achieved the aims of self-sufficiency, as the farm plots proved to be too small to provide for families, and manure for fertilizer had to be imported. The Society of Benevolence had to find other sources of funds to keep the colonies going, and this led almost immediately to the founding of unfree colonies that hosted groups of orphans, beggars, and vagrants who lived communally and undertook work on large farms under contract from the state. 4 unfree colonies have been nominated, 3 constructed between 1819 and 1824, and the 4th being converted later from an unfree colony to an unfree colony. All these unfree colonies now accommodate modern secure institutions, and for 3 sites, this use dates back to the early 20th century. Parts of the original farm complexes of Omoshan, seen here, are now surrounded by the modern buildings of a maximum security psychiatric hospital and large modern farms. Sorry, can we go back one, please? At Wortel, the oldest structures reflect the Belgian building program that started in 1870, and buildings for 1 farm and staff houses remain. The central large vagrants institution is now an active prison to which new buildings have been added. Some buildings from the founding period at Wienhuizen survive, as do several handsome late 19th century institutional buildings, which now house 2 active prisons. At Merkplas, where most structures date from the late 19th century, the large central institutional building is now also used as a prison and surrounded by modern structures, including one used as a center for illegal immigrants. The unfree colonies also suffered from problems, as many of the inmates were simply too weak to undertake heavy physical work. In 1859, the government of the Netherlands took over the unfree colonies of Ommoshans and Wienhuizen, leaving the society to run the remaining 3. 11 years later, the Belgian state took over the unfree colonies, and by then, the idea of individual families improving themselves had given way to institutional organization. By the 1920s, the colonies in the Netherlands were sold. ICOMOS considers that the colonies of benevolence should be understood within the wider political and economic context of the early years of industrialization in the countries of Western Europe, in order to demonstrate why some of them might be considered exceptional. A revised comparative analysis provided by the State Party has demonstrated that amongst programs using agricultural labor as a means to reform the individual, none operated on the scale of the colonies of benevolence. And moreover, it was the ideas to which they were associated that sets apart the colonies of benevolence from the many state-sponsored institutional poverty reduction schemes that operated within most industrializing countries of Europe in the early and late 19th century. The proposed justification of outstanding universal value mainly relates to this idealistic founding period of the colonies, when they were seen to be in a social experiment rooted in the ideals of the Enlightenment. In evaluating this series, one of the key issues has been how far the series as a whole and each of the colonies individually might be said to reflect those ideals. The opening words of the nomination dossier state that the colonies of benevolence represent one of the earliest initiatives to exterminate poverty on a national scale. Based on the ideas of the Enlightenment, the colonies established a unique utopian concept to re-educate the poor. ICOMOS fully agrees with this, but does not consider that the subsequent development of unfree institutional colonies can be seen as utopian. Moreover, in ICOMOS's view, it is not the ongoing evolution of these colonies that is of value, but the way they reflect the ideals which promoted their foundation. Consequently, ICOMOS considered that one or two of the free colonies might have the potential to justify Criterion 3, but not the series as nominated with the inclusion of unfree colonies that reflect completely different methods of poverty reduction. We do not consider that Criterion 5 is satisfied, as it is not the ongoing interaction of people with the land that is of value, but the initial aims and purposes of this social experiment. And for Criterion 6, the links with the Enlightenment cannot be seen as sufficiently strong to be of outstanding universal significance. Integrity has been impaired by the loss of early buildings, by the overlay of new housing, and by the new ancillary buildings related to prisons and psychiatric institutions. And at Wilhelmina Ord, not all the original colony has been included within the boundaries. In terms of authenticity, the main issue is the way the colonies no longer clearly reflect their purpose, giving the changes to the building structure, and particularly the use of institutional buildings as closed institutions in 4 unfree colonies. The orthogonal layout may survive, but not the pattern of buildings related to it. The boundaries are currently inconsistent in terms of what they include, and not all colonies have protection, and protection needs improving for the wider landscape. Management also needs to be strengthened. ICOMOS considers that the original colonies of benevolence experiment did reflect, in an innovative way, a spirit of idealism. ICOMOS considered that there could be potential for 1 or 2 free colonies to be considered for inscription for the way they clearly reflect those ideals. But the selected colonies would need to be able to convey those associations through adequate attributes and how they're integrated into a whole. The way the colonies were used and the memories of those who lived in them also needs to support a better understanding of their organization and how they impacted on the lives of their inhabitants. In conclusion, ICOMOS recommends that the nomination of the colonies of benevolence should be deferred in order to allow the state parties, with the advice of ICOMOS and the World Heritage Center if requested, to refocus the nomination on 1 or 2 free colonies. And we have further recommendations that are set out in the working document. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there any comments? Brazil, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Brazilian delegation. Our delegation went through this nomination with great interest and wishes to highlight the very exciting theme that this transboundary Syria nomination proposed by Belgium and Netherlands. We draw special attention to the proposals innovative character regarding a typology related to a social engineering experiment for the improvement of individual. Brazil understands that the colonies of benevolence represent striking testimonies of a historically relevant approach to poverty alleviation in a context of growing industrialization and urbanization and the consequent significant social changes thereof, which lays the basis for its potential outstanding universal value. Brazil respectfully diverges from ICOMOS' understanding that the free and unfree colonies did not reflect the same ideology. Though the latter had a different approach aimed at settling orphans, beggars, and vagrants, they are all, the free and unfree colonies, part of one single major utopian model of poverty reduction that guided their foundation in the 1800s. The Brazilian delegation shares ICOMOS' concerns with regard to changes in structure and uses in some component parts, as perhaps weakening the integrity and authenticity of the overall series as currently presented. But at the same time, we support the perception that the basic principles and objectives of the colonies of benevolence, as well as the story they tell as a whole, remain somehow largely and tangibly recognizable throughout the component parts, thus providing basis for verifying conditions of integrity and authenticity for the series, in our opinion. We sustain that only a comprehensive selection of both free and unfree colonies could convey their full meaning and significance as a large-scale early 19th century utopian experiment aimed at eradicating poverty through a system of agricultural settlements which in our view could potentially justify the inscription of the property under Criterion 3. In relation to buffer zone, legal protection, conservation, management, and monitoring, Brazil largely echoes the conclusions of ICOMOS. For these reasons, Madam Chair, in the light of the very clear potential of the colonies of benevolence to meet Criterion 3 and the conditions of integrity and authenticity, in our interpretation, Brazil believes that this nomination should be referred back to the state parties to allow them to adapt to the nomination by focusing on the well-preserved cultural landscapes of both the free and the unfree colonies, both understood to reflect the ideals relating to a single utopian model for poverty reduction that guided their foundation. And in this regard, there might be need to revisit the selected components, and perhaps an advisory mission could be of help in this exercise. Our delegation has tabled amendments in that regard, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Uganda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Uganda wishes to congratulate the state parties of Netherlands and Belgium for this nomination. Furthermore, Uganda shares the views of Brazil and considers this nomination to be crucially important as it is one among the earliest experiments on poverty reduction. Since this social issue is still of great importance and a contemporary sustainable development goal, Uganda acknowledges that some issues have to be streamlined. However, we do support the draft amendment for referral status. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Spain.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Hacemos nuestra también la propuesta de la delegación de Brasil. Las recomendaciones de ICOMOS que realiza y que también consideramos acertadas, creemos que también el expediente, debido a que ya está muy trabajado y bastante completo, consideramos que se pueden realizar en un año y proponer la devolución del expediente para que sean corregidos estos aspectos. Consideramos que el valor universal excepcional está claro y esto el comité también creo que lo debe asumir de cara a la vuelta de este expediente al año que viene, pero también apoyamos la idea de que tienen que estar en el expediente los dos tipos de colonias, las libres y las restringidas, por la autenticidad y sobre todo la integridad del expediente y del significado del expediente. Y también consideramos que deben de estar, por tanto, los dos países, tanto Países Bajos como Bélgica, por la representatividad geográfica de este expediente también. Y, por supuesto, también en consonancia y siendo coherente con el propio comité que estamos animando a los Estados parte a que elaboren candidaturas internacionales, y consideramos que este es un buen ejemplo de ellos y que los Estados que han participado pues deben ser también estar bienes de ambos Estados representados en la lista, en el bien que se inscriba en la lista de Patrimonio Mundial. Por tanto, apoyamos la enmienda de Brasil, la devolución del expediente a los Estados parte para que corrijan todas estas observaciones y se inscriban al año que viene en la lista de Patrimonio Mundial. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Zimbabwe, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Zimbabwe commends the state parties for this nomination, which is a clear example of an experiment in fighting exclusion and poverty in the very early days of industrialization. We fully support the proposal by Brazil for referring this nomination so that the state parties can work together with the advisory bodies to address some of the issues relating to the refocusing of the nomination, as well as to the management of the proposed nomination. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now China, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. China knows the new focal areas of the nomination involved with the heritage research and conservation, which have closer association with our ideas, behaviors, or even problems in the contemporary society. China supports the endeavors made within the World Heritage Framework to assimilate latest intellectual achievements and carry out active reflections on modern or contemporary social issues, including urban development issues, along with the continued development of the whole society. This confirms with the dialectical views of Chinese people on history and heritage that features drawing upon from the history. China so appreciates the property jointly nominated by Belgium and the Netherlands and support the nomination to be referred to the state parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cuba, please.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Agradecemos a la delegación de Brasil por las enmiendas que ha presentado, que posibilitan que el Estado pueda hacer una nueva revisión de esta candidatura. Comprendemos algunos de los señalamientos realizados también por ICOMOS y entendemos que de futuro será un expediente que deberá dejar claro también ese principio universal de los derechos de los hombres a la libertad, para que no haya un mensaje equívoco también, sobre todo en aquellas colonias que no eran voluntarias, y hoy los diferentes espacios y centros de interpretación que se pueden hacer en los sitios declarados nos permiten tratar con mayor claridad y sensibilidad todos estos temas. Reitero nuestro agradecimiento a la delegación de Brasil, que nos ofrece una oportunidad para que este expediente, que sin dudas tiene un valor universal excepcional, pueda ser devuelto al Estado y también se nos presente en la próxima sección con otra visión mucho más integradora. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Now the floor is for Tanzania. To Tanzania, please.
Madam Chair, the United Republic of Tanzania congratulates the State Party of Netherlands and Belgium for presenting this interesting dossier of colony of benevolence. Tanzania also commends the ICOMOS for in-depth analysis of nomination, which has resulted in several recommendations to be considered by the committee and the state party for the very near inscription of this property. This is a transnational series of 7 sites located in Netherlands and Belgium, which contain both free and unfree colonies. The 7 components are well described in the dossier. It is an inspiring story, Madam Chair, that can be still inspire the community who are living in the poverty today. As we learn from this dossier, the Society of Benevolence was formed as a voluntary association to address poverty on a national scale. The delegation of Tanzania appreciates and thanks the advisory body for comprehensive comparative analysis proposed in the nomination dossier. Tanzania agree with the advisory body and will recommend the state party to consider its comparative analysis to reflect the ideal that guided the foundation of these colonies. The same spirit could be used to ensure that the statement of standing universal value reflect the idea and the idealism that characterize their foundation as a social experiment in the poverty reduction. Madam Chair, these colonies are proposed to be inscribed under criteria 3, 5, and 6. As ICOMOS agrees that the series approach is justified, Tanzania believes that the state party and advisory body will find objective argument to address few remaining challenges. Madam Chair, delegation of Tanzania noted that the advisory body and the state party agree on OOV of the property was justification on authenticity, integrity could be improved if the state party is given a time. Tanzania also notes that the criteria 3 is agreed by both parties. As for the management system, Tanzania agreed with the advisory body to enhance the delineation of buffer zone and to protect the colony as a whole landscape. Excellent Madam Chair, for that reason underlined above, and considering our contemporary context where the poverty alleviation is a global target, the future inscription of this property will have a symbolic value and inspiration. Therefore, the United Republic of Tanzania proposed that the colony of benevolence be referred to the state party. Madam Chair, Tanzania support the amendment proposed by Brazil. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And now Indonesia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Taking note of the willingness of the state party to maintain dialogues with the advisory body, that includes designing a clear plan to adjust the boundaries, integrity, and measures to conserve the desired OU fee, and also to invite ICOMOS advisory mission, Indonesia recommends the property to be referred back to the state party. We might also invite the state party to consider reducing the components to be inscribed on the basis of selecting the components that best reflect the criteria under which the property is nominated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will continue our list. We have Tunisia, Australia, Angola, and Hungary after the break, because we don't have any more, I think, the translator. Thank you very much. See you at 3 o'clock.